I'm really happy to have on this afternoon Pastor Curtis Smith. And at this time, we're just going to ask him to introduce himself, tell us about where his church is located, some of the things they do at his church, and perhaps a little bit about himself and his family, and where he's from.
Well, again, I'm Pastor Curtis Lamont Smith. I am from the city of Stockton. Born here to two teen parents, being that 13 and 14 that was their ages. So yes, I attended at 3 years old my mother's graduation at Edison High and my father's graduation at Franklin High School. With that, so they're bringing in kind of already facing basically already beating the odds, being, to teen parents, is that also understanding to the sacrifices that were made by my parents of almost, even giving up their teenage years in order to become parents and to raise me. My father, who at graduation with a 3-year-old son, made a decision to go into the military. And so therefore he went into the Air Force. And then at the age of 10, he then asked my mother, could he raise me? So I left Stockton at the age of 10 and moved in with my dad, who was stationed at Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield, California. So fighting and kicking, taking me away from my mom. But one of the best things that could have ever happened for me is because he wanted me to see a different world. I mean, he was born and raised in Stockton himself, and he wanted me to experience, some of the things that he didn't get a chance to. So leaving Travis Air Force Base, we lived in Omaha, Nebraska for 4 years. And then I finished out my senior year in high school in England. And then I moved back to Stockton and then started to attend University of the Pacific. Went there for entertainment management. I was in the music industry. And then upon leaving Stockton after that, then I vowed that I wouldn't come back. Thought I wouldn't return, but God had a whole different plan for that. And so in my journey, I should say, I went on to work for Internal Revenue Service. I went into full-time ministry as a youth pastor and eventually returned back from God's calling in Stockton, California, and planted a church here in Stockton.
Okay, what's the name of your church?
The name of the church is Destiny Christian Center.
And where are you located?
We're located at 7620 Oxford Avenue.
So how long have you been a pastor now?
It's going to be 10 years next year. 2021 will be 10 years.
Oh, congratulations. That's great. Good for you. Just want to ask a couple more things. I know that you're also affiliated with Faith in the Valley. Can you give us a little bit about that and what that looks like and sort of like where the location of that is?
Well, Faith in the Valley is a multi-faith, multi-race, faith-based organizing network. We are located in 5 counties in the Central Valley, in Stanislaus, San Joaquin, Kern County, Merced County, and did I miss one?
You have 5 counties.
Five counties, 5 counties. And so basically what we do is we organize with congregations and communities around community issues. Something as small as a speed bump stop sign to things as large as immigration rights, violence prevention, things like that. Things that make the community better for citizens. And basically we identify where those problems are, who's responsible for those problems, who can help solve those problems, and then how we can be a community together that's uplifted, empowering the people to become the leaders and the voices of those who usually feel powerless or not able to make a change in their city.
Today we're here to discuss a little bit about celebrating the Black male, which is our theme for Stockton Black Family Day this year. And I want you to give me a little bit about the Black male that you feel would be significant at this time. And what I mean by that, as a Black male yourself, what do you think we need to do to improve the Black family life or living in this city?
When I think about the Black family, I think about love. And basically, I just said as my own experience as a Black male, I think about the things that that strengthened myself, and also the things that I've been able to learn from my experience that I've been able to implement as times, especially when I was a youth pastor, dealing with a lot of young Black men in the community, in broken families, broken homes, fatherless, children and everything, that I became the father, and still in some ways in that capacity still looked at as a father to some of those young men who are now men themselves. And so when I think about being able to to speak to the family and the family unit and the black male, that I believe the love is the component. The love that basically looks beyond a person's current situation and kind of sees past where they are right now, seeing what they can become.
Right.
And also, that basically that young boy, that you build up becomes he becomes a young man who becomes, a part of the community, which becomes a strong community, can build a strong family, which can build a strong world. So it starts basically at their youth. And I believe that component there, I mean, sometimes it sounds like cliche, what the world needs now is love, but really, truly, I believe that is what we really need and to strengthen back our families and our black men.
All right. Yeah, because the world does need love, like you said. And that is a significant part. It's something that people need to really stir the mix in. So do you have any suggestions about the family and the unit of the family and how we can unify ourselves in our families nowadays? Because there's so much division, even within a family, especially with single moms, single dads, so forth and so on. So what do you think would be a great suggestion for that?
I think that key is what you said, like even within our own families and going to the component of value. And I think, when I was able to learn the value of the family unit, and it took me a while, I was one of those teenagers too that said, I didn't want to, I don't want to come eat at the table, I don't want to engage with the family, we go through those stages. But it wasn't until some of the experiences I had later on in life and some of the things that I learned about history, when I learned about the context of where my ancestors came from, when I learned about some of the struggles that they had, when I listened to my elders, when I finally listened to my elders and heard some of the stories and the struggles and the things that they went through, when I began to realize that my dad was 25 years old asking to raise a 10-year-old son, and taking on that responsibility. And I look at that age now, and, and I can't even fathom, some of those things, is I think about sacrifice. And so when we sacrifice, our own comfortability in order to gain a goal that basically is to be more connected, what would that look like? And I think if we can restore back the prophetic imagination of people, to see what unity really looks like, because sometimes you're asking for something that people don't even know, like I don't even know what that looks like. You're asking us to be unified. And I used to do the same thing when I got involved with organizing for the first time. One of the things the director used to ask me, Pastor, what would you like to see? And that would be my answer: unity. I just want us, to be able to come together. But it's hard to, if you don't know what that looks like or haven't even had a example of that, then you don't even know what you're building. And so I believe it's up to us in those families to be able to create those spaces, create those times, those events, those relationships that lets people know this is what unity looks like. And so therefore, this is what we're striving and why we should be united. Sometimes this happens organically. I mean, back in the day, it used to be like we could be divided, but if somebody's coming against the whole family, we're all coming together, right? But it's like, for us to continue to lift up, those stories and those reasons and that vision, I said that prophetic imagination of if we were really together, this is what our world could look like.
At this point, what suggestions would you have personally for a single mom who's raising a child? I shouldn't just say a black male, but black male or children in general.
Well, raising a single mom, raising a black male. One of the things that I don't say that I don't agree with, but I really have a strong opinion about the thing about when it says that a black woman can't, raise a black male to be a man. I've seen some very strong men come from single, moms, and so basically that, is not truth. And there's been studies. let me back that up. There's been a study that came from Cornell University that shows it's not the single mom status basically that has something to do with the detriment of the son, where he ends up and where he goes. It's actually usually the attitude. Actually, in that study, it's the attitude of the mom that affects the child and in their direction. So if I have any advice with that vein, it would be to the positive attitude of the mother. It would be always, the faith that they have to look towards the hopeful side of things. I believe that there are definitely steps and things I've seen, in my family's life and everything like that, is that my mom and dad, even though they were not married, is I never heard them speak ill of one another. I've always heard them, basically supporting, one another. And as I got older, they told me some of the things that they did experience. But as I was a child, I never heard my dad speak ill of my mom, and I never heard my mom, speak ill of my father.
Right.
And so I'm thinking the positive attitude that a mother can have to instill that into her black male son, especially, and one other thing about that is that I'm having all these don't type of things, but I wouldn't suggest telling your son that he has to work harder to be better than the white person, the white male. I would suggest that he has enough in him, just as he is growing up in what you're teaching him and what he's learning, to be just that. Just understand the world that you live in doesn't value you as much as that. So to be able to teach a black son about the world he's growing up in, and that it's not his fault. It's not his fault that his father's gone. It's not his fault that, his family's not together. It's not his fault that he's being treated a certain way. This is the world that you have grown up in, and son, but we're going to make it, together. So the attitude of the mother, I believe, is one of the best things that I could say to a single mom, is keep that positive attitude, hopeful attitude, and always keep it, basically a vision, of your son of reaching their goal.
Well, that's a great twist, because most of the people I've asked a question that was very similar to that always said that they need a mentor, and mentors are wonderful, because you can have a great grandfather, or you could have a great uncle, or whomever it is, that can also drop some bugs in the child's life to help the child to be a better man. But it doesn't take anything away from having a great mother as well. So many young men are broken right now. We see that in our society. They're just broken, and they don't know what to do, where they're going, what's going on, and they do things that are harmful to themselves and to others. So what would be your advice at this point? How would you redirect them?
And again, going off of experience, when I was a youth pastor, there were definitely some young men who were going into, you could kind of see that they may be headed into the wrong direction, maybe a little misguided, and all types of situations that they came from, or things that brought them to that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, if I can go from what they told me, basically, I just did the best that I could do, as far as being in that space and position of teaching them. But it was like, it took me a while to understand. I had to, first of all, understand that these young men, they were resources, and they were not objects. They were not projects that, that I was sent by God to work on and to fix, but I was placed in their lives for a reason. And so the whole redirection came from love. I go back to that same term, but that's what it was, because that's what they said it was. They said, when they came back, I remember one in particular, I remember his, father at the time, was on drugs, and that take him home to the house, and the lights would be off, turned off. There would be no electricity. Certain times I would even bring him, to our home and everything. But one of the things when he took, me and my wife to dinner when he became an adult, he even said, he says, you didn't even know that I was in a gang when you first met me, when I first started coming to the ministry. And we were like, no, we had no clue. There was no type of signs or anything like that. He was like, you didn't even know that these were. So he laid down all these different things that was going on, and we were kind of shocked. But the thing that he said that basically stayed with me all of these years is, he says, you love me. He said, you love me. He said, and you never changed. He said, you were consistent. He said, even if I disappeared and was gone for a long time, you weren't on me about, where I've been or how come I didn't show up or where I come. You weren't on me about pulling my pants up or cutting my hair. He said, that stuff just started happening. Like, you tricked me. He said, because I just started doing that, but it was because of the example that I was showing, and it was because of the way that you guys love me as if I was your own. So that is what I would encourage anyone to do with our young, generation right now, to put them on the track. If you see them heading that way, is that they need to be heard. They need to understand you're valuable, and I'm not trying to change you. I'm just willing to love you where you are. And, the change is up to God.
Very good. Thank you. I love that response. That was a great response because there's so many young people when they come back to you and show you that what you were doing was really positive for them. That's really great. Have you ever, or will you, have you ever, or even now as you think as you're talking, would you like to create something that would help young black males um, be a better man or become a better man? You have any programs or anything you have in mind?
I have some things in mind.
Mhm.
And again, because of the background of the youth pastoring, I've always felt like there should be something. And I've always, not always, but I've sought out in the places that I've been, like mentoring programs, rites of passage programs. I've kind of listened to what's there, what's missing. I thought about my own experience and what was it that helped me, to grow. I know there was programs back in the day, even though I was, with my dad who was in the military, I would come home to my grandmother's house for the summer, and I would work in summer youth employment. And I was, involved in that. And so I know that those were things right there that helped me, summer youth employment. Those were things that taught me, the things that trained me. It's it's different, these days, but it was the church, situation. My grandfather who had had me up at Emmanuel Baptist Church with him and the things that he would show me there, and so it was those types of things. So it was little different components. But what I'm looking at like today, there's one thing that really has stuck out with me, and it was the travel for me in my life. It was the exposure to other places outside of the place that I'm in. And I realized, even coming back to Stockton, that it was so blessed because there were things that my own siblings and my cousins weren't able to do, that I was afforded to do because of my father. And so being able to live in a different state, as such as Nebraska, not believing that a black person existed there before I got there, becoming a part of one of the biggest churches that recorded the song No Ways Tired. And it was mega before I knew what mega church, even was. So these experiences that I had, was just like, it wasn't like a new experience coming back home. I'm like, I've seen this. I've seen this. When I lived in, worked in Oakland, I managed a music store there. And there were young people who had never been across the bridge to San Francisco who lived there in Oakland. So I would take them after work, make sure that it was okay with the parents and everything. They were teenagers, and take them just across the bridge and expose them to there's something more than the neighborhood, that you're in. And so with saying that is that I wanted to do that as a part of an organization that would have transformative travel. Mm-hmm. And even, these days, I say these days, one of the programs that we advocated for in my work was Advanced Peace, which we have here in Stockton. And the components of that, when I heard them lay it out, it was just like, wait a minute. This is exactly what, we were doing, because some of them same young men that I told you about, I took, them to Disneyland. And they said that was the best trip they ever had. They had never been. And it was they were 18 years old, at Disneyland. So when I myself visited Selma, Alabama, Montgomery, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, when I went to the Equal Justice Institute, when I went to DC and I went to the Smithsonian African American Museum, all these different places that continue to shape and form me, who I am, I always think about, what if I could bring the young people here? When I went to Tuskegee, what if I could bring the young people here? I remember in high school, junior year, they took me on a HBCU tour, and it just amazed me the things that I saw that existed. And I believe that there, if I could, even partner with a organization that does the mentorship, but if I could help raise funds for transformative travel, I would love to take young men to see the world.
Sounds great, Pastor Smith. It really does. Lastly, this is our last question for this segment. I want to ask you, how can we as a society or a race celebrate Black males? And I know that a lot of times we don't always give kudos to children. Like if they do something in church or they do something at school, or they just did it, they're supposed to do it. But sometimes they need that little extra shove. And sometimes a lot of our Black males, our young men, need that little extra shove or that pat on the back. You're doing a good job. So what are some things that you could think of today, because we're definitely celebrating our Black male. Last year we celebrated the Black woman, so this time it's celebrating the male, and I just want to know what you think in those terms.
I think that there's a responsibility that we all take as everyone that's a part of our community. And I say community, our family, the Black family. that there's certain gaps that are missing. We recognize that, but when we say celebrate, we shouldn't just wait till the birthday and the graduation. We should be looking for opportunities to say that you did this, and it starts, very early. You did this for me, in my son, he's only 2, right now, but basically, celebrating all the little things, the new steps that happen, the new words that happen. And sometimes with me being a pastor, I want to teach them, what, that was God. That thing you just did, that was prophetic, showing those things. So celebrating and really paying attention to them to understand where those gifts and talents lie, so that you're celebrating the things that they are most, I should say, more being developed in, the things that they're most passionate about. And again, the little things, that you can spot. And if you look for them, you will see them. It's almost like buying one of those cars. You buy a car and all of a sudden you never seen it before, but you buy one. And now every last one you see that's on the street that's driving around. So if you're looking for the good in someone, you'll find it. And then at that point, celebrate it. Some of the tangible things, I believe, is that when we have I call it our BMGs, our black men graduating, from whatever, platform that is, whether it's elementary, junior high, or high school, I think we should put billboards up around our city. We hear enough negative, about our kids. And so I think we should have billboards up that stay up for the whole summer about the black men that have graduated, the celebration of our young people, and celebrating our history as well. Because I say, let's just not celebrate, the living, but let's celebrate those who have gone on before us. Because I believe that we can be proud, of a city or a place or even of a people if we don't even know that there's some great things and great history and heritage that we have. And I believe that's how we celebrate. We celebrate the current, the past, and celebrate the future.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming out and to the interview today by Stockton Black Family Day. And I just want to thank you again. I just want to give you the best of, I don't want to say luck, but the best of blessings for God to use you in whatever way He sees in this community. And thank you very much, Pastor Smith.
Thank you.